Okay, welcome to Exceptional Circumstances for Exceptional Learners. This is our third episode, and I'm so happy to be here with some dynamic folks that really help to change the lives of so many students. So our topic today is inclusive art, music, and theater. Um, and we have specialists from each of those areas who are going to discuss what they do. And hopefully this will be a opportunity for us to connect and also to continue the conversation. Many of us have had to change and alter how things are done due to COVID-19. And I think now more than ever, the needs for art, music, and theater are so important for socialization, for our children, for stress relief for the kids and for the adults too. And unfortunately, these are some things that get cut when it comes to school budgets. So it is really important to look in your community to see what is available because I think, as we'll find through our discussion today, they have great merit for their therapeutic purposes, as well as just to have some fun. And all kids deserve to have that. So our first presenter today is Abbie with Say It With Clay. Say It With Clay is an organization actually in my town in Collingswood. I have had some students that have been a part of the program, but I've never been able to see it myself. So it was great to connect with Abbie and to talk to her about how she began and some of her philosophies. So without any further ado, I am going to take it to Abbie.
Thanks, Rebecca, and thanks for having me today. I'm honored to be here and meet all these wonderful new creative people that you have invited. I'm looking around the room, so to speak, and I'm not really sure that I know anybody else on the screen right now, but if I miss anybody that I know already, I'm not seeing the names of anybody familiar. So for me, that's an amazing thing because as the executive director and the founder, my number one job is to grow us and educate the communities that we service of what's available. And when I do insane amount of networking in person, my best friend is to walk into a room of people that don't know us, because all of us know amazing people. And those amazing people that know our services already, or refer to our services already, whether it's a state agency or private company, they know how to get us and where to find us for the most part. But new people, not so much. So I am grateful for the opportunity and thrilled to also meet all of you and hear all the fabulous work that you're all doing out there. So Say It With Clay, for those who may or may not know about us, is a nonprofit agency that I started a little over 8 years ago. We've been up and operationalized now for 6 active years. Our main hub is Collingswood, but we also have a very, very active mobile program that's been going on since its inception. And we take our clay on the road and we visit rehabs, hospitals, senior centers, schools, libraries, basically anybody that hires us for additional travel mobile fees, we call them, because it's also a lot more work to go out to different locations. And we work with children and adults with any types of special abilities, we call it. So it could be physical, mental, behavioral, medical, or did I miss one? Physical, medical, emotional, behavioral, or mental. Any of the disabilities that may come our ways. And we're also inclusion-based. So we're open to the general public. And the way that we are able to be all those wonderful things is all of our staff are strategically hired with either a art therapy degree at a bachelor's level, master's level, or licensed level, special ed art degrees, or special ed certified, as well as we have a PT, which is a physical therapist, and an OT also on staff, because all of those trainings and backgrounds, and some people are grandfathered in, to be brutally honest, because it's so hard to find people. They're grandfathered in if they may not have the exact degree, but they've worked in that field for over 10 years, especially with special ed art. So the ultimate goal of mine always was to offer success and be able to offer the same support and ability to anybody walks through our doors, basically. And I was having a conversation with Rebecca last week or the week before about the trials and errors of figuring that all out. And initially I didn't only hire people in those general human service areas, and it kind of came back to bit me, which are long stories that I won't get into today. But staffing is probably my biggest challenge, because we are not at a place in 6 years where we have full-time positions available. We have a couple of close twos, like 20 to 30 hours a week, but we're not financially secure enough to offer benefits and all that comes along with a full-time salaried position. So all of our staff are per diem. They're 1099 clinicians who pretty much come to us after their other jobs, work evenings or weekends, some during the day that are part-time that have private practice. So they're supplementing working with us and a private practice, which is awesome. And so, yeah, that's kind of more structural information. And how I personally have art therapy degree and a bachelor's of fine arts from University of the Arts many, many years ago. And so recently, not recently, I guess, probably about 15 years ago now, mental health treatment guidelines changed dramatically. Where I was working at the time was a place called Genesis Counseling Centers doing treatment, which changed. And so when all the requirements changed, I decided I wasn't going to move forward with my education, but get more into psychoeducation and development and administrative work there and marketing and all that stuff. And that's really where I started to fall in love with the development part of treatment programs and creating groups and curriculums and all that.
Sure. Now, one of the things that we talked about as well, in this environment where everyone is trying to put food on their tables, they're worried about jobs and, but at the same time in the special ed field, we want to provide the best services to all the families that we can possibly get to. How do you determine whether you are going to be a nonprofit or a for-profit, and what are some of the considerations for that? Sure. And what makes them different?
Sure. So primarily, I get asked this question a lot and do some consulting even with different people that are on the fence, so to speak. I think the primary difference is if you're a nonprofit agency, there's a lot more resources available financially, but it's also a lot more work. There's, documentation and requirements and guidelines to follow when it comes with that 501(c) status. But with that said, we apply for grants and we apply for funding from lots of different resources, not just grants, but corporations have, giving foundations, they call it something a little bit different. We fundraise all year long, so there's no limits on how much money we can raise that way, which we do a tremendous amount of. And we also are more attractive to some of the state agency programs and county programming as a nonprofit, which with those funds, we can also offer things at somewhat of lower rates sometimes because we can supplement with other funding sources and partner together. A lot of the money we raise is used for scholarships so that people that can't afford our services are able to be eligible. Sometimes we get full scholarships or just partial, but we have like a whole process where people can apply for scholarships with us as well.
And I would love for you to talk a little bit about what you have been doing in order to accommodate your participants during COVID-19.
Sure. So I don't know about everybody else, but when I heard the words virtual and Zoom, you know, I'm a clay person and I'm a people person, and that kind of freaked me out, and the hairs on the back of my neck stood up, and I couldn't even imagine doing anything that way, especially with clay, because it's so hands-on and smashing and rolling and pinching and wedging and checking for air bubbles. We do everything step by step. But we had to conform, and I had to get comfortable with the uncomfortable for myself. So we hashed it out, myself, my staff, my board, and came up with a virtual program that has become pretty successful in the last 4 or 5, well, I guess 4 months now. We could not just have our doors closed for 4 months and really not attempt to have other ways of bringing income in. So we created our clay kits that are available for purchase to the general public and all of the programs that we offer. And we basically created a kit with disposable tools. And so it's no contact pickup, and inside the kit, they get all the supplies to create one clay creation. And we decided for the clay world not to do virtually live, but pre-recorded. So we spent a week developing and recording pre-recorded classes that are on our YouTube channel that can be done at home. And it turns out with most of our participants, it's so much better because they can stop and start as needed. They can do it with one or somebody sitting next to them, or even friends can do it together, you know, on Zoom with each person have their screen and start and stop. So we created 6 videos, and so far so good. Things are going well with the drop off and pickup is completely no contact. And I even delivered this morning 40 kits to one of our state agencies. And this is on the screen. Thank you, Rebecca, for your techie skills that I do not have, but you have, thankfully. This is one of the kid classes that we offer. And so we have 3 kid classes, 3 adult classes. And if we soon will have clients that have done them all, we'll just create 6 more classes. And then they take it home, they create at their leisure, drop it back off to us, notify us that it's left outside. We are lucky enough to have a backyard area with the studio. So there are tables, they don't even have to come in the studio. They can leave their box out when it's completed or pick it up there as well.
Which is great because we were talking last week and she was in the studio at the kiln, and dun da da, this is what the kids are able to create.
Yeah.
Which is so wonderful. And apparently what this is a cupcake, and the top comes off and they can put little treasures inside.
It's a cupcake container. Yep. I forgot to take a picture with it like open, as I said earlier. So yeah, this is just one of the kid programs, classes. These are our masks. For those who may know of us, our annual fundraisers called Faces of Value. And we silent auction off clay masks made by lots of different creators from the community, as well as our contracted programs. We ask them to make masks.
On like the trees outside.
Yes, yeah, they're on our trees outside. You saw them?
You would never know what goes on in this little place, and you're like, oh, say it with clay. That looks neat. And then you drive by, and there's this one time of year that there's the masks are out, and it's just so incredible.
Thank you. And we have totem poles in the front too. If you've seen our totem poles, a lot of people see our totem poles. Yeah, so these are just some of the programs that we work with Bancroft, and we work with the Special Olympics swim team comes to us once a year, really just for different activities for, you know, their kiddos and adults to get involved in. It's really therapeutic. They get to smash and roll and use muscles. That's why we do some PT and OT with it specifically. This is a travel program where we went out to their location and now with COVID too, a lot of, we have contracts with like Crossroads and Oaks Integrated Care agencies, and they can't put the kids in vans and come to us because of COVID and social distancing. So we're doing some training with the staff so staff can do it with them while we're in our absence.
That's fantastic. So we are going to hold question and answer for the end, just so we can kind of hear everybody, trying to keep the chat up as well. So, you know, feel free, if you don't want to forget your question, go ahead and put that in the chat box, and we will get back to it towards the end. So thank you so much. I'm hoping that I get to see it in action live soon.
Yes, thank you. I will be sharing our information. Our fundraiser got canceled in April, so we are rescheduling for September something virtual. So
oh, great.
I will hopefully and and kindly ask you to please share with everybody you know.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Of
yeah.
course.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm looking
You're
forward to
welcome.
listening to everybody else now. I'm going to mute myself out and listen. Thanks so much.
All right. So the next group is Acting Without Boundaries, which I came across while I was in college and the president of our Council for Exceptional Children. I was able to bring a volunteer group in, but what I didn't realize is that we went in to help the kids and it changed me. This organization is one of a kind. In fact, I was trying to find if there was any other a theater group out there that does what AWB does, and I haven't seen it. So I am so thrilled that I've been able to be a participant in as a volunteer, and also since then I've been able to see someone who I'm close with be on the stage. So today we have Christine, the founder, as well as Neil. So I will have them share with you what they do.
Hi, Neil.
Hey, Chris.
I'll go first.
Great.
Hello, Mike. Hello, and thank you, Rebecca, for having us.
Absolutely. Thank you for being here.
My name is Christine Rouse, and I am the executive director of Acting Without Boundaries. EWB is a non-profit theater program for children, teens, and adults with physical disabilities to learn about the performing arts. More importantly, it helps with their self-esteem and self-confidence. At EWB, we focus on one's ability and not their disability. In 2004, I founded EWB because of my personal experience with cerebral palsy. I went to regular school all my life. In high school, it was difficult because I often felt isolated and I could not participate in many activities. I graduated from St. Joseph's University with a BA in education. After college, I went to a theater program in Maine for adults with physical disabilities, which I loved. With the help of my family, I was able to create EWB.
Great. So, Chris, I guess I'll take over. Great.
Yes.
So, Acting Without Boundaries has now expanded to multiple programs. We provide theater for performers with physical disabilities. But as Christine points out, it's really in many ways much more than that. It's simply the venue to provide a sense of well-being, a sense of family for performers and families who have physical disabilities. So we have a senior company, which is essentially late teens through adults. We do one main stage, huge main stage show, usually a large musical. This year we're doing Anything Goes. We have a junior company from 4 years old up to mid-teens. We now have a master's program. We involved intensive training in theater. We just did a large program in conjunction with Inglis House, which Inglis House is a large facility for adults with physical disabilities. We're also reaching out, we're working with McGee Rehab, doing an acting program there. We've worked in conjunction with the Arden, and now the Kimmel Center is a new partner with us, which is lovely. And we travel, we create theater experiences and programs on a traveling basis too. And during the COVID era, this has been quite an interesting challenge for us because so much of what we do involves people being together. And as Abbie was pointing out, wow, what do we do? I'd never heard of Zoom before. But we said to the staff, I said, we need to do something. We got to keep doing something. And one of our big concerns is social isolation for not only our performers, but their families. So we have now moved completely online. We do Zoom rehearsals. We do Zoom performances. We just have been experimenting with a filmed, both on phones and Zoom recording of a short piece that I wrote. We're going to be debuting that on social media soon. And we are going to be filming our entire performance of Anything Goes in the next month or so, putting together for public streaming in the fall. And I think it's just really crucial that we continue to reach out and maintain connections with people. And I think that the social media has actually worked in a lot of ways pretty well, Chris. Wouldn't you say?
It has. Can I add something? Because you all work in education, we also do an outreach program where we go to schools and organizations and we perform the AWB melodies. Can you talk about that?
Sure. So we're often in schools. One of the main things we try to do is promote the awareness of people with disabilities. And it's been a very strong, sort of really a driving concern of ours that a lot of folks don't really include everyone the way they should, including theaters and professional theaters. And so we go to elementary schools, junior high, high schools. We'll put on a short performance exercises. So we were at a middle school not long ago before COVID, and we brought up a number of middle schoolers, and they had to put gloves on their hands, and then they put a large shirt on it. They had to button their shirt with gloves on their hands, and just to get a sense of what that's like for people who can't move their hands well. We also we do similar kinds of things like that, just to have people sort of a sense of experiencing what it's like for someone who is differently abled. And as Chris points out, we don't focus on disabilities, we focus on people's abilities.
Absolutely. And as a volunteer, you know, I wasn't exactly sure when I was 20 walking in, like, oh, this seems like a fun thing to do. And you know, we're actually helping the kids and with their cues to get on and off, but they knew what to do. Their talent, like, it wasn't like they are such a phenomenal group of talent. And when you can see them, I feel like, unfortunately, people are sometimes afraid to ask, you know, and you don't want to ask what's wrong, but just exposing kids and having them be able to ask questions. I feel like your performers do so much more than just perform. I mean, they have amazing voices, they're talented, but then they also have this humanity piece and this ability to connect that when I volunteered, I wasn't expecting. And
Rebecca, I mean, when I was 16, I started a program called Kids on Kids, and it's a disability awareness program. But when people come to the show, I mean, you as a professional actor. So if we put on, say, we did Annie a couple years ago, people come for the show, and he pushes the actors like without disability. It is so good for the audience to see, just because someone's in a wheelchair or someone's in a walker, they can still act.
Absolutely.
And we have wonderful performers. You
Yeah, and Rebecca, it's interesting because Christine had started AWB about a couple of months before I got involved many, many years ago. And I came as a volunteer, as you did. And my life has just been transformed. And then Christine fairly soon said, Neil, we need someone who knows about theater to maybe run the program. And I was like, what? And I jumped in and said yes, and it's been simply phenomenal. And you're right, the performers they're amazing ambassadors of goodwill to everyone, and we have volunteers who come back year after year and then will thank us for allowing them to volunteer when we are so appreciative that they come and spend their time with us.
Yeah, if you guys were just a little bit closer, but it's still great to come see the shows and to be able to be a part of it that way. I would love to share. You guys posted a social a media thing about how we can get through COVID. Would that be okay if I shared that?
yeah,
Sure, a little public service announcement we made. Yeah.
Absolutely, because something that Christine said, and something that has come up a few times with the conversations here, isolation is something that those with disabilities, unfortunately, are really used to. So now that we're all kind of in this same boat, hopefully we have a greater empathy and awareness. So I hope you guys can hear the sound. Yeah.
we also are interested in possibly doing school assemblies on Zoom. If that's something that you would be interested in.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's great. All right. So hopefully the sound works. Please let me know. Can you hear it?
Social isolation is something I have dealt with
my whole life.
It can be boring,
Frustrating. Scary. Anxiety inducing. But
Staying at home does not have to be still.
Here's what we do.
Listening to my music.
Volunteering and helping others.
writing music. Getting outside every day for fun.
Swimming!
Bouncing on the trampoline.
Working on my podcast, Blind Abilities.
Writing in my journal.
Getting creative.
Prayer and my faith community
Are all good ways to cope.
As people, we need to connect, so don't forget.
Check on each other.
check on each other.
Check on each other.
You're gonna be okay.
You're going to be okay.
You're going to be okay. We're gonna be
Okay.
Oh, I get goosebumps every time I watched it. It's just so wonderful. And to see those faces that I also know are on stage, what a great announcement.
Yeah, and we
Thank you.
wrote it, put it together, filmed it, and that's what we're doing now. So a lot of that is our performers' input as we create these things, which is really marvelous.
And you can see some of the costumes. I mean, you truly feel like you're watching a show, you're watching the story. You start to not see the wheelchair, you start to not pay attention because you're just enthralled in what they're doing. Thank you guys so much. I hope that, as we share this and the community gets a little bit larger, I will also let them know that you're doing it virtual. I do know that we have someone right now from the West Coast here. So while this is very Philadelphia based, just because this is the network that I know, I would love if there's anybody out there that knows of, different types of communities that are doing something like this. I'd love to hear about it, but this to me is the most unique and just wonderful thing. It should be in every city. It really should be. Like it's upsetting to me that, I have to look so hard to find something, but at the same time, I feel privileged that I know, and people that have been able to take advantage and be a part of it. So thank you guys so much. Please, I hope you
Thank
can
you.
around.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks, Rebecca.
Absolutely. All right. So our next presenter here is Gregory Perkins, who is a music therapist. And while theater includes a lot of the art and the music, I would love to hear what you do specifically and what your journey has been, and also what's it look like for you now during COVID.
Great. Can you hear me okay? Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Greg Perkins. Greg is fine. And I want to thank Rebecca for inviting me here today. And it was really actually, I guess going last is kind of nice because I got to hear from people I don't know, Abbie, Christine, and Neil, and the wonderful programs that they are providing pre-COVID and even during, this time of unprecedented, nervousness and unsettled future possibilities. But anyway, I am a music therapist. I'm actually from originally the South New Jersey area. I was born and raised in South New Jersey, but I did head up north for college and have been up here ever since, up to North Jersey area in the New York City metropolitan area. And so I worked previously in a private hospital before I switched to exclusively becoming a full-time independent contractor. So I work for a private practice, and I've been full-time here for the past 3 years, and definitely the impact of COVID has been a very interesting adventure, to say the least. So before I get into more of that, I just wanted to make sure everyone does know what music therapy is. I'm sure most folks here probably do know what it is, but in case you don't, I'll give the collegiate response based from the American Music Therapy Association. That's really just, it's the use of music within a therapeutic relationship and therapeutic context to address and support, like Abbie had mentioned with art therapy, like the physical, cognitive, social, emotional, and needs of individuals. I personally have worked in the past with the differently abled population, I like to say, because everyone has different abilities, it's just really just, figuring out what those abilities are. But I have primarily worked with young kiddos, teens, young adults, and older adults with physical and intellectual disabilities, various developmental disabilities, various complex medical disability disorders and illnesses. And I really focused on folks that are on the autism spectrum disorder, and Down syndrome, ADHD, some trauma-informed work. That's really has been actually, just by being in a private practice, that's kind of what has just, there's the individuals that have walked through the door. And I really love working for the place I work at, which is called Tempo Music Therapy Services, which I'm going to talk a little bit about. That's okay. And we are in Nutley, New Jersey. And we also have a sister location in Westchester, Pennsylvania, and a satellite location in King of Prussia. So we provide we're all music therapists. We're all contracted, so it's private practice. We're all independent contractors, and we all provide a plethora of services. Our director, Dr. Angela Guerrero, she is a music therapist as well, but also a yoga teacher and trained in yoga and child with special needs. So and we're very big on inclusion. So I'm very happy to hear all the support for inclusion. Our whole model is inclusive. It's inclusive based. Everything we do is based within that inclusion model. So a lot of my work, I do Music Together, which a lot of you probably heard about. It's for families and caregivers and their children birth to 5, and then also 5 to 8 for their 8 years of age, called Rhythm Kids. It's a different age bracket. And in our practice, it is an inclusive class. So we have families with neurotypical kids and, kids that might have some special needs. And the beauty of is growing this community where everybody can understand everyone's differences and then learn to work together. That's our whole core concept. I also work with a lot of young children, teens, and young to middle-aged adults, and excuse me. And my model is very developmentally based. So I did some further training in the DIR Floor Time program, if anyone's heard of that, by Dr. Stanley Greenspan and Serena Weider. So that has really helped to really bring about the whole idea of inclusion and really looking through a developmental lens, and kind of like Abbie had mentioned before, really that really cultivating there's a relationship with the image. Relationship is huge, whether it's myself as a therapist with the individual, with the family. And I want to say family because during these COVID-19 times, that has become especially critical. And really, that lets me work, and using music therapy allows me to work in this creative arts modality that, you don't have to have any music theory knowledge. You do not need to know how to play an instrument. It can be verbal, it can be nonverbal. What I love about music therapy, and I use a lot of improvisation, which means I will create musical conversations or soundscapes in the moment based on what the individual or the child or the adult is expressing or needing in that moment. So a lot of my work is done from that, and that's what I love, because I really get to build and hone a relationship with the individuals I get to work with. And then it just helps me to really, and then if they trust me, I can help to extract the potential so they can really be their true autonomous self. So with moving, to this time of COVID, as of March, it has been a very different, experience, as everyone has already mentioned. I like to use the word adventure instead of like problem or challenge, because it makes it more playful in my mind. Like, okay, an adventure. There's gonna be really like low moments and really high moments. So that's just, maybe it's my own vice for helping myself feel better. But I will say, we had to close our doors March 16th, our actual office doors, the physical office, but we never stopped working. Literally the very next day, we jumped into telehealth using Zoom as our platform, which is HIPAA compliant based on the service that you purchase. Which is important to note. And I'm truly like wonderfully exhausted. I feel like it's been a learning curve every single day since March. But the joy of, really exploring telehealth has allowed us to continue in a different format, of course, being able to reach out and work with all of the clients that we serve. So we have provided, in addition to our therapy services, we provide for free restorative yoga, music, and meditation for caregivers and parents. We actually have a class tonight at 8. It's from 7:30 to 8:30. Usually this was a live hour-and-a-half experience, but now we moved it online. And if you go to tempotherapy.com, or you can find us on Facebook, Tempo Music Therapy, offering music together. You can find our Facebook there, and you can just sign up for that. If there's any parents or caregivers that are needing just an hour to themselves, feel free to hop in and jump in. We'd love to have you. We also provide we do two studio recitals a year, and they are inclusive recitals. We might have neurotypical kiddos, who've taken lessons, which we do provide. And then we also have our clients who sometimes the best fit for them is to perform. So we actually moved to a virtual recital this past, last month actually, using Zoom. And it was a great success. We've limited everything. We found like 60 minutes seems to be the magic number. As soon as 60 minutes hit, folks tend to start to get tired and lose that focus. But that was actually really great. We had a lot of our clients or students pre-record. We pre-recorded their pieces. Actually, the therapist did it. We can actually record on Zoom, so we were able to do it, edit it. And then for those that didn't want to do it live, we shared a recording or they performed live, and it worked out really well. It brought people together. It allowed them to invite family and friends that maybe don't live close by to also attend. So even though there's been a lot of struggles and challenges, it's also brought a whole new light to like, wow, we can really do a lot more outreach virtually. So that was really nice. We also, oh, sorry, yep.
No, go ahead.
Sorry. And we also, we do have a nonprofit sector. It's called Tempo for Arts, where we do raise funds for I think Abbie's company, for scholarship and outreach to families and individuals that may be able to afford it. So there we do 2 sensory friendly and inclusive open mic nights a year. And usually it's down the street in one of the church basements, and we kind of change the whole setting to be inclusive and sensory friendly. So this time we had moved that online as well. And that was kind of also just very lovely. It allowed anybody to come in, watch, hang out, perform, recite a poem in the same format, and they could also invite others. So it did change how we do things, but once again, it still provided, a new outlet and a new avenue to do that. We're gonna ask a question?
No, absolutely. Something that you said, it just really just struck a chord, and I think is the thing that kind of brings this whole thing together, is that relationship piece and that connection. And through art and the music and seeing kids on stage, we're able to disconnect from all of the craziness around us and kind of bring together. And you said, and something else that kind of it mirrored what Christine said, to bring out our truest self and to see that we're a part of something bigger. And while this has been, things that we're not used to, I think we really need to find the pros, see that, we can have a live performance even though we're not in the physical room. I don't know, that's inspiring to me. I think that we're in the education world per se, we get stuck in our ways. This is the way the textbook says, this is the way I was trained. But when it comes to relationships look different. And depending on each kid, each of their abilities, it's looking for providers and services that know how to unlock that magic door, and to allow them to be their true selves. And honestly, some of my personal students, I feel like they're more honest with me in this format. They're not performing as much because they're in they're not performing in the way that we want them to with music, but they're in their environment and they're able to really show their true self. So I think that is so great. And I do want to leave the floor open for anybody who, I know we have people from the West Coast and we have some people from a college setting. And I know our main idea was inclusive art, music, and the theater. So if anybody wants to ask general or direct questions, please feel free. Maybe. I think we did lose a few participants, but that's okay. Go ahead, Greg.
Yeah, I can just add a couple more components to that.
Sure.
I know I have learned, like you just said, like some kids seem in their own setting at home, it's a different, it just alters how they perform or how they act. And some I didn't expect to do so well have like completely surprised me, and others I thought would be okay have a bit more challenges with it. And I've been exploring a lot because I'm taking a course now because there's so much digital emphasized in our world, is using digital music,
Okay.
platforms. And there's a lot of free platforms online, such as like a Band Lab, Soundtrap, Songmaker, using Chrome music experiments. And these are things that you don't have to download anything. It's just online, and it allows you, like if you're using Zoom, or you can actually create digitally with my clients. I'm able to create these digital, pieces or songs, and we're actually able to co-collaborate together. Like I'm accessing that screen using Zoom, and they can actually go in on my screen and add a loop, change a function. And I just want to really reiterate the importance of not giving up, but also surrendering. Like there's always going to be hiccups. We're using technology. It's going to freeze. We're going to lose our internet. And it's really, really using those experiences not to get upset or flustered, but like it's part of the problem solving process. It's part of the therapeutic process. How do we as adults, how do our clients handle these hiccups? How do we handle these problems? Like how do we problem solve, and how do we keep ourselves regulated, and what can we learn from that, as well?
Yeah, it sounds like I should probably go to the 7:30 class today. With everything that is coming out, it is stressful not knowing what school is going to look like. Prior to getting on this call, I'm looking to see, I am very much focused on how to deliver the mathematics and to get them a notebook through a Google slide and to figure out all of these minutia to make it easier. Because what I'm afraid of, if I'm working on all of that during our lessons, I'm not going to have the time to build that relationship piece. I'm not going to have the time to do the things that I can do off the cuff in a classroom. You have to be a little bit more planned out, a little bit more prepared. But it sounds like through all of your organizations, you found a way to do that. And that alone is inspiring. That, you found a way to take it, the art to be a mobile system and to create these, the videos, and that they're going to have their performance online. I know one of the really sad things for us when we got shut down, the week we were shut down was the week of the high school musical, which when you do a musical, as you may know, it takes a lot of time and preparation and practice. And for some kids, it's their senior year. They may or may not be going into college to try to pursue this. This was their moment, and they got shut down. And it was literally Tech Week. Tech Week was when we closed. So I think they ended up doing a small, like just a performance for immediate family. And it was a bummer because they didn't have the time to think ahead and prepare and know to take a video. We weren't there yet, but this has definitely opened up a world for us to do things, and for the special education community and those with disabilities to provide these services to everyone and anyone. However, if you caveat here, if you have access to the internet, which is something that is probably for another discussion about access and how do we grant that and make that possible. So it's, last week we talked about recovery plans, and I think it probably took me until this moment to recover from the discussion, because there was so many questions and unanswered things. So knowing what you all do and that it's there, and that if we can just have people get access to you in whatever form that is, I feel so much more inspired to know that education is a very broad topic, right? It's not going to a building. And I think that's where we're all stuck, that school is going to somewhere. I hope that anyone who sees this will also be inspired, one, to reach out to people that are doing this in their communities. Like, do you have a really strong like music therapy or a therapy like network, a community? I don't know if Abbie or Greg wanted to speak to that, or Neil or Christine, of just how you're connecting to other groups.
One of the things I was going to say is that we have learned at Acting Without Boundaries that we are never going to go back to an all live work. Zoom, I think, has offered possibilities we never considered before.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And what, because of
people who can't get to us, people who are in their rooms in a bed, and that's their life, now can participate with our programming via Zoom, via a tablet. That's something. Yeah.
And Rebecca, every Friday we do socials.
Oh, really? Oh, that's great.
So it helps our actors to keep in touch with one another. It is really neat.
That's great.
That's great. That's great. I will say, piggybacking on what Neil just said, initially I was really resistant, and I think, Greg, you said you guys were on Zoom the next day. We closed our doors March 15th as well, that same week as everybody else, pretty much. And it took me like 2 to 3 weeks. I actually had COVID myself, so I was also delayed because I was really sick, and I'm perfectly fine, thank gosh. Both my parents got it. They're seniors, and they're perfectly fine, thank gosh. I went to take care of them in New York and got sick. But at any rate, once we got our videos made and we started seeing how we've always had a mobile program, but this is really different. And this is where people can do it at their own time. Like if someone can't sleep at 2 a.m. because they're isolated or sad or lonely or whatever those issues are, if they have that kit from us now in their home, they do it when they feel like it. And that was one of the things that helped us figure out which way in the road to go, live or pre-recorded. And, if they get frustrated, they can take a break and come back to it. One of my biggest fears was trying to do a live class, and teaching people how to roll coils sometimes can be frustrating. And how do I help somebody that's stuck in the middle of my live Zoom class, and everybody else should wait and hold on while I help this one person, which is what we normally would do in the studio, but at home, again, it's a very different environment. So we went with pre-recorded because of the materials we use. That's what worked best. But it took me a good 2 to 3 weeks to really get comfortable with giving it a shot and finding the right staff to also record it. And that was an art teacher who works for us as well. And she had been doing Zoom for the last 3 months, teaching her art class publicly. So, it was kind of a no-brainer. I definitely wasn't going to be doing it myself. No way. But thank gosh I have her, and she's amazing and can speak slow and step by step and all those things that come into play with being able to be inclusion-based, where everybody can understand the steps and stop and start that tape and go back and forth. So kudos to you, Gregory, for getting it started so quickly. And I get it now, Neil, too, because now it's done, right? We've done it. We've lived through it. It's not scary anymore. It's not intimidating anymore. Now it's, okay, how many more videos should we make for the next 3-month rounds, you know, and we will keep it live all the time. We will keep this as an ongoing option as well, permanently. Even though, again, we do go in the home, we work with hospice programs and Samaritan Hospice here. We have contracts and stuff, but this is very different. And now I see it as a positive, and I'm so excited to add it to our list of services available, which I didn't expect. So yay.
Yeah, it's a group effort. I mean, amongst like even like, you know, our companies or private practice, it's a group effort. Like it was like you just had to like everyone had to just band together and go, you know, because our whole thought is like we need to be able to continue to provide services for all of our individuals that, you know, may not have access or might feel like isolated or alone. You know, it's hard. And I just to echo everyone's sentiments, the same. We will actually probably continue online services as well after this is done for those that would like it, those that don't want to travel the physical distance, you know. And I was talking with a colleague probably a couple months ago, and we're like, why didn't we think of this before COVID? You know, it's like, so sometimes it just takes that, like it's those experiences that just kind of, that we need to go through and live through, like, oh, okay, yeah, you know, to help us get back to this balanced place of.
That is really, it's truly fantastic. If you all have any, you know, and literature or websites that I can possibly gather, Learning Revolution really does hit a wide sense of educators out there. So I would love to be able to post that to our site. We're just going to wrap up here. You know, I do want to stay connected. So if you do want to join the Learning Revolution and the Exceptional Circumstances for Exceptional Learners group page, feel free to do that. But
on Facebook, Christine? I mean, Rebecca, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
is that
so
Facebook? Okay.
This is actually through Learning Revolution itself, which I can send you some more information. And that way we can continue the discussion and be able to hopefully, especially now, get this to kids who may not have thought of it, or, you know, as extracurriculars look a little bit different, perhaps we can source them to your organizations. I am so grateful for all of you to be here. Like I said, this is an unprecedented time, but those relationships and those connections, they can still continue to happen. So I thank you. I hope that you consider me a person in your network now, and we can move forward.
Thank you so much for having me. It's wonderful to meet you all. Keep doing all the amazing work we're doing, and I'm honored to know you all and be on the same screen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Pleasure, and see you all next. Is it once a month, Rebecca?